Hello everyone, my name's Jonathan Ryle. I'm speaking with you from on a kind of chilly night down in Melbourne, Australia. My understanding is I've got quite a few people from various parts of the world on this call, and so I'll be your host tonight, and we're just going to be looking at how to run a remote team successfully. Before we get started, a couple of just housekeeping things. So if you have a question, I'd love to have the opportunity to talk about specific problems or specific questions about any of the information that I'll be sharing tonight or today. Put it into the question box that you should be able to see in your GoToMeeting bar there. And if you hang around to the end of this this webcast, then I have an information pack of resources around remote work. So hang around and I'll show you how to get that. We can send that out to you. All right, well, let's get straight into it. So how to run remote teams successfully. So today we'll be talking about a bit of foundation, three-tier process for the setup and what makes that work. We'll talk a little bit about tools and tactics, equipment, a little bit of the technology that best practices around that, some communication essentials, and then sometimes, things go wrong, it doesn't work. We've all been put through this, some willingly, others unwillingly. There's definitely been problems we've had along the way and things we can take away from that. So we'll talk a bit about those things. A bit about myself. So I'm a co-founder of Frontline Accounting. Originally, that was a cloud-based accounting firm that was really started with the idea of offshore workers, accountants working from the Philippines, serving our Australian business service clients. So, offshoring and then using the cloud technology with Xero. And that we built that up we started that in 2012, built that up slowly. And in the process, other accounting firms got interested and started seeking us out for how to set their own offshore teams up. And that really became a business on its own, which I'm 100% devoted to. I've sold out of the accounting practice, but I've kept my qualifications. I'm a chartered accountant, and so I understand what it's like running practice and being involved, serving business clients. And relevant to this webinar, I've been running 100% remote offshore teams since 2012. So we've got 10 years of experience there. So for me, where did it start? It was back when, actually previous to Frontline, I was involved with, I got into a business with a friend. It was a student rental business, subleasing residential property near a university and renting out to university students. Naturally, with my accounting background and experience, I got lumped with the back office, admin, books, compliance, all that type of thing. So I had a lot of work on my plate. I was a full-time accounting job as a manager, and then just had my weekends. I had to kind of be up on all this extra work on this side business. Read this book, and we've been hearing a little bit about offshore and VAs, virtual assistants and things like that. I thought, well, maybe this could be a great way to get that business, free up some time. So I went to a website, which was Upwork, hired my first offshore contractor. Her name was Christine. She was in the Philippines. Create a little task manual for her, set up a Skype so that she could, call our tenants and things and deal with repairs and other things like that. And she became a total lifesaver to me. It freed up a lot of time, took away a lot of my stress. So naturally, when we started Frontline Accounting, these were the ideas we had in mind. You know, how do we get it working? You know, let's get our offshore teams up and running, get it working really well, create all this extra capacity for the business, and we can just be out selling, you know, growing the business. That was really where that came in. Frontline grew, you know, it's grown significantly since back then in, you know, the early 2010s, and you know, the BPO, business process outsourcing business, was born. We've got about 450, 500 staff over there in the Philippines right now, and all working, you know, remote, as in remote to their clients, and a lot of them are working from home. So our business is remote teams. COVID hit, so and I'm sure a lot of you here are, you know, you've all got your own experience with this, but you know, the global experiment was work from home. We're all willingly or unwillingly required to stay at home. Many of the accounting firms that I'd spoken to over the years that weren't interested in letting people work at home were forced to. They had to embrace it, at least temporarily. How did you go? How did your firm or business go during those lockdown times, and what's your approach right now? You know, a lot of people are wanting back to the office. Some are wanting to, you know, stay at home. In the Philippines, where our operation is, there's a lot of pressure from the government to get everyone back to the office. They want to get the economy going again, and all the restaurants and, you know, everything that are not really active because everybody's at home. They want to reinvigorate that, and they've put mandates that, you know, people must be back in the office, and that's creating a lot of tension because you've got staff that are willing to resign if pushed. So how do you handle that? So we're in a bit of a unique dynamic, I would say. We have, I would say, probably on this call, we've got two categories, or possibly it could be even in between. On the left, you love the whole work from home thing. You know, that as I think about this, those that have young children, that probably suits the family life a bit better. Employees generally, introverts that you know, like their own space and time to just get their work done, that's been fantastic for them. But on the other side, on the right hand side, extroverts, they're missing the talk in the, you know, the hallways of the office. Those with school age kids, that, you know, where it's actually pretty hard to work from home, and it's particularly, like, you know, I've got 4 kids, 3 in school, and it was a big juggle through that time with the kids at home. And then a lot of bosses don't like the work from home setup. Elon Musk, in a memo headlined "Remote work is no longer acceptable," said to his Tesla employees, "Anyone who wishes to do remote work must be in the office for a minimum, and I mean minimum, 40 hours per week, or depart Tesla." This is less than we ask of factory workers. On the other hand, our friend Parag Agrawal at Twitter, CEO of Twitter, in a tweet in March stated that Twitter offices would be reopening, but the staff could still work from home. "Wherever you feel most productive and creative is where you will work, and that includes working from home full time forever." In a survey that was undertaken, it's been undertaken over a number of years by this research company, and looking at the percentage of those getting paid to work from home, you'll see there that pre-COVID it was, you know, around the 5% mark, and we had an immediate jump once that change came through, and we're still hovering at around that 35%. I know for my own business, with all of those staff that we're looking after, we're probably got 80%. I think we're closer to 80% still working from home at this point. Let me define remote work for the purpose of what we're talking about. So when I talk about remote work, the categories, you know, I would say offshore teams, you know, we need to think about the setup for them. Employees working across different time zones. You know, I have a country manager in the UK. We have, you know, communicate. He's working from home. I'm working from home. We got employees working from home. That's just generally, and then employees working from the office, but in different locations. So multi-office. And I would say that since we've been through this sort of, it's been such a big transition work-wise. The whole approach, people are just approaching it differently. People are more open to, you know, oh, you can go and work in that co-working space rather than me having an office in the city, or I'm happy for everyone, you know, working from home 3 days a week, or, you know, there's so many different setups that people are going to start going with. So what are the big problems with the whole remote work, office, work from home setup? Let's have a quick look at what those main things might be. First is lack of visibility. How do you know that your staff are putting in a solid 8 hours work? You know, how do you know whether your staff are going through personal problems? You know, you can't see body language, for example. That was the advantage of being in the office. You could see someone slumping in their chair and, oh, something's not right. You could go and, oh, you know, what's happening? And have an informal chat. Can't really do that easily, you know, with the whole remote work thing. Lack of connection, you know, those extroverts, they really suffered, didn't they? Has your company or team culture suffered through COVID? I know for, you know, our clients, they all have their own teams. Those that had you know, already a really solid culture continued quite well. There was no big problem, no big dramas. But then you get someone new in the team, and it's hard to integrate them because they're all at home. So how do we get around that? We've also seen, you know, articles coming through called, you know, about the Great Resignation. People are reassessing their life, their options, you know, coming out of COVID. When you're working from home and it's a tight labor market, it's much easier to potentially switch employers. Just easy. It's like logging out of one employer, logging into another, isn't it? Perhaps you've lost some staff recently. You know, how do you go about onboarding new staff remotely? If we're not physically seeing each other, relationships are not built quite the same, are they? Perhaps the work life is too balanced. It's what I call blended. Home and work become blended. It's not a great recipe for productivity. You know, I've been through this myself. You know, I got a yeah, what do I do when I'm on a call and my 4-year-old's knocking on my door, he needs to go to the toilet? What do I do when my 9-year-old interrupts my work meeting because he wants to play on my iPad? My wife is at the shops and I hear my 14-year-old yelling at my 9-year-old. There's probably 100 other scenarios out there that just break up your concentration through the day and make it hard to do that sort of deep, you know, focused work. You know, we have plenty of employees working from home that have young babies. So how do we manage it? So the challenge with all of that is that, you know, when we're talking about company culture, we've either got to embrace remote work or risk potentially losing good staff. But if productivity suffers or relationships and connection are lacking, that can flow through to what we deliver to our customers. So ultimately, customers will be the judge, and no one wants to be mediocre. So what we're going to try and do today with, you know, some of these principles that we're going to look at. So there's, yeah, the promise of today is we're going to unpack, you know, how to develop a results focus, which is really around how do we keep making our clients happy whilst remote working, and importantly, make a profit. You know, filling out 40 hours of timesheets at the end of the week isn't really a result. That's just a process. The result is a happy client. We want to look at how to build team culture. And we want to look at a remote setup where work and home is balanced, but not necessarily blended. And with all of that in place, that will allow us to become an employer of choice, whichever way we end up going with it. So I've done a lot of talking at this point. I'm going to open up a quick poll, just a bit of a temperature check for everybody that's here. What has been your approach to remote work? Just give me some feedback. I'm just going to open up this poll in and then give 30 seconds. All right, you should have that pop up on your screen. Quick and easy. Hit the button. Let me know. And just to give me some idea. Okay, responses coming in. Thank you for that. I can see that there is a very, very definite movement to the hybrid. 80% so far are in that hybrid category, which is some days at home and some in the office. So that's interesting. Quite a few of our clients we've been talking about that with them as well. So I'm not really surprised. And yeah, interesting. So we had about 17% completely open to the full work from home, and only 3% are looking at 100% back to office. So that's interesting as well. So what that tells me is that the work environment, at least for people on this call, is fundamentally changed. You know, we are quite open here to work from home setups or hybrid setups. That's good, thank you. I'll just close that and let's keep moving. Okay, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go straight to this team success formula. This came through some discussions with a lawyer friend of mine. So it's not my own original idea. I can't copyright this, but I felt that when it was explained to me, it was a really, really good explanation of how to get the maximum out of, you know, how to create a really good culture, and it works really well for offshoring. So team performance really requires 3 things, which is why I've got the triangle up there on the screen. It's like a 3-legged stool where all the 3 things need to be in place. The first is you've got to have decent systems. Yeah, if we're talking, I don't know if everybody on here is an accounting firm. It may be, it may not be. I've generally dealt with accounting firms. You need, you know, accounting firms tend to be pretty good at checklists and procedures. Not always, but definitely the well-run ones are. There needs to be good, decent training. So it's okay to have good systems, but your team has to use them. They have to know what they're doing with them. And then you need some accountability to make sure that there's follow through to actually getting the result. And on top of all of that, I don't think it's going to show up on here, but the communication is like the oil in the engine. So how we communicate, and the challenge to that is extra with remote work, which we'll talk about. So they're the 4 key principles that we're going to look at. Let's start with key principle number 1, which is leverage your systems. So leveraging your systems, we want to leverage systems with technology. You know, offshore teams or remote teams are not really a good solution for firms that have no systems in place. As I've said, firms like this, they'd be better off spending their energy on just building checklist procedures and starting there. Forget all the other stuff. You just have to, you need that. So there's some things that, you know, with systems that there's some things I would normally look for when I'm talking to accounting firms. Perhaps you've got, you know, a systems manual. That's always a big winner. For me, I got involved with this particular accounting practice. I bought in as a partner regretfully, back in 2018, naively thinking it would be straightforward to systemize. It was a firm that had been around for about, I don't know, 30 years or so, retiring partners. I had another, I would say, a friend, colleague who had already bought in, and then he brought me in as I guess, an accountant. He wasn't an accountant, but he was trying to run it, needed some accounting expertise. So I came in thinking that, I've got all the solutions around, offshore teams. We're good with the cloud technology, where we can turn this thing around and make it really, really profitable. Here's what we encountered. And by the way, it wasn't in my own city, which was it was in Brisbane, which was about a 2-hour flight from where I am. So when we got in there, we encountered there was 3 separate databases with billings coming out of all 3 of those. There was an old server that could self-destruct at any time. The previous partner was loved by the clients and had decades of client-specific knowledge in his head. Staff that were incompetent and needed this partner to sit down and help push through the file. The partner would physically sit with the employee to get that job through to finish and out the door. Corridors of filing cabinets and client information that was simply missing. The client had dropped it off in the office, whether it be on a USB or a bundle of shoebox or whatever, but it was gone. We had no idea where it was. So it had some problems. So we got to work systemizing it. We moved everything to Xero. We added an offshore team. We created a single set of work paper templates. We overhauled staff. I'd love to tell you how successful it was, but for this firm, it was such a big change. It was hard for the existing staff who were set in their ways. It was hard for the clients. We ran low on money and ultimately sold out. I guess what I'm saying to you is that if you have terrible or no systems, remote work is not going to work extremely well. And the rest of what I say won't apply well. So attributes of a well-systemized practice. And apologies, I'm using the word practice for if there's any attendees here that are from businesses or corporate, but you can adapt this as well. This is still relevant. Cloud-based works really well in remote, when we're working remotely, or easy to use servers. Client information collected and converted to online format, so everything paperless. Good, as I've said, good systems manual or checklists, single set of template work papers, client communication centralized, like we used to use like a Zendesk, a good visible online workflow system, well-maintained client database, standardized internal reporting, we'll talk a bit more about that later, and then workflows within the firm have been defined and mapped out. Here's an example of what an online, I don't want to bore you with detail here, but this is what ours looked like. And we did have like a 2-page job checklist, which was great for the junior staff or new staff coming in, just to know that their jobs were complete. So yeah, that's really, I could do a whole lot more on systems and technology, and I know accountants love to talk about the latest stuff, but for time, we're going to have to keep going, but I will answer any questions if people do have them. Doesn't look like there is so far. So let's just keep moving. So the next principle for running your offshore team is training. Training with impact. So the old way we would do this is boardroom. You bring everybody in for lunch, and they bring the tax expert would come visit or whatever, and we'd do it in a room, or we might go out and the firm might pay for off-site training at a conference seminar type situation. That's fine, and that's probably still going to exist, but you're going to have staff that 20% of the people here are 100% work from home. So you're going to get a new staff in the door, and how are you going to do it? You know, you're going to onboard stuff, and then you've got the informal stuff as well. So you can't easily just sit down with the person at the desk and work through a problem with them, show them a procedure or whatever. So what will we do? Our early days, so the early days of training new staff for me was remotely, one at a time. This is Cherry. She was our first staff. First one we ever hired in the Philippines. She started with us in 2012, and it was one-to-one. It was many hours of my time on Zoom. Each job I would give her required calls and, you know, time training. Sometimes I wasn't understood particularly well. You know, I'd spend 20 minutes running through a job, hand it over, only to find that 3 hours had gone by and she really didn't know what she was doing. So I had to, you know, pick up on that and retrain. So it was time intense and progress was pretty slow. It stinks of hard work. So that's what we don't want to do. A year or two after that, I got this birthday card, which was great for my ego temporarily. The staff made this for me on my birthday, Super John. They said, "Happy birthday, Super John." So I had another call about a week later with my business coach, and after packing some of the problems we had in our business and some of these things I'm telling you about, he looked at me and said, "John, you're doing everything and solving every problem that people have. They must think you're Superman." I said, "Yes, and I have the birthday card to prove it." The business couldn't really improve until there was less reliance on me. So we set about looking for more training resources and creating our own training. Going from one Zoom call to another all day long just would no longer cut it. So we pivoted to look at what online training was out there. You know, webinars like this, you know, that some of the training providers, we did lean on some of those, but also for our own training. You know, I was keen to train people on how you know, what software would we use and how is our team going to use it? How's our workflow going to work? We had all of that. So we set about creating our own, and I'm just going to share with you how this is done, or how our approach. So pick a procedure or a checklist that you want to train your staff with. Record that using one of these software programs. So physically on the screen, show them the reconciliation or the procedure you want done. And then that gets hosted either on intranet, one of these other platforms. Loom really has become a major part, and I'm sure that there's probably, if I did another poll, there'd be quite a few people, I'm sure, that are familiar with that. It's pretty widely used these days. But what that resulted in was we have like in the UK, the VAT, GST, same thing here for us. You know, that reconciliation work for an accountant would, you know, it could be fairly tricky, and for a junior accountant, they could often get it wrong and mess it up and things like that. So I created a 20-minute video on that. So it took 20 minutes of my time to record and got watched hundreds of times. You know, so in terms of leveraging your time and freeing your time up, that's the new approach. So the new approach is, you want to train one-to-many. You want to record it so that you don't have to do it again. It's recorded and kept for use over and over. But difficult concepts, particularly junior staff or offshore staff, they can hit the rewind button. You know, maybe have problems with my accent or whatever. Like, they can work out what I said. Maybe I mumbled. They can work out what I said. It doesn't need to be perfect, but you get huge returns on the time invested if you were to invest your time in this. You know, I mentioned Loom. They've I've also used Loom in such a way to use it informally as well. So you know, I review a job. You're reviewing a job late at night. I don't want to type out an email to the staff that I'm reviewing. So I'll do a video and just talk through the different points that I've raised and send that to them, and they get that in the morning and go through it that way. So, and same with clients. You know, you can review a set of accounts or something like that. So it's got multi uses. You know, Loom came out with you might have seen it, a little ebook thing talking about asynchronous communication, which I mean, asynchronous, it's a fancy word that it's sort of like, it just means that you're communicating but not both at the same time. And using Loom in that way is quite effective with remote teams. So, you know, I've got my, in the UK right now, I'm working with a software provider to set up a new payment platform. And so there's things I have to do with my Xero file to get that working. And we're sending Loom videos back and forth. You know, I get stuck here, you know, here you go, I can't work out what to click. What do I do? This is what the error that's coming up. 2-minute video sent back. He'll do a Loom and respond, and it works well. So that really has become a key part of communication and training within a remote work environment. Okay, so next we're going to talk about accountability. This principle ensures that the first two principles get traction. There's no point having great systems if they aren't followed, and there's no point doing high quality training if the knowledge isn't put into action. Yeah, one of the, I guess, the fears that people have with remote workers, particularly remote workers that are, you know, overseas, what happens if they go AWOL? When you're remote working, you've got to realize that no news is not always good news. One of our clients, in our early years, we had a client that hired a remote PA in our office. I'm not going to use real names. Let's just call the staff member Emma. Over time, Emma's productivity, so Emma was a PA, so admin. Her productivity seemed to decline. It was just a feeling the partner had. It sort of ate at him. So he ended up giving us a call. He said, what's Emma doing? She's taking a long time to respond, and she was really good at the start, no longer performing like she was. Could you guys just have a look and check what's going on there? So we did. We went back through security footage and noticed, she's leaving work early, or she's going out the door or down the lifts during the day and spending an hour and coming back with shopping bags. So, you know, and we had to confront her about some of these things, and she didn't stay with us too much longer, I would just say. But so what do you do? You know, so the problem with that is it's really a trust thing. When you can't see what people are doing, there's an additional level of trust, and that has to be respected. So while we've got, you know, there's software tools to monitor and track what people do throughout the day, but I would argue that you go to that stuff only after kind of like trust is already broken. It's not ideal to be, you know, using this type of thing to track how every minute of the day is spent. Yeah, I was just going to make the point, you know, if put it in a sporting analogy, if Australia's playing England in the Ashes, it's everyone being focused on what needs to happen to win. You know, the amount of hours spent at the crease is important, the number of balls bowled is important, but the team must play well together and all do their bit. So it's really results that are the key that we're after. So how would you set up your remote team to perform well and to implement everything you've put in front of them? There's a couple of tips I'm going to bring forward here. So firstly, team rhythms. call it daily huddle, call it morning prayers. It's a daily 10-minute catch up with your team. Go around and everybody has to tell the rest of the team what I'm doing. What 2 questions? What am I working on today? And what are my roadblocks? Simple. Okay. And whilst that over time can seem a little bit dry, when we've stopped doing that, you start to notice the performance decline. It's really designed to make sure we're continually communicating, and also to get a little bit of visibility on what people are doing. So, that job that I, as the partner, think really is like a 2-hour job keeps coming up day after day after day. I better go check in and find out with that person why it's not getting finished. Maybe someone does have a roadblock and it's just a quick, while you just mentioned that client, I just realized I've got some information from them and I can give it to you. Those sort of little just catch out just help make the team run smooth and I guess stop the dumb things happening. We also run, so that works well with small teams. I would say once you get to a certain size, you might want to break that up into, multiple team rhythms. We've got sort of 40 or 50 support staff that different teams have their daily huddle, and then we'll do a weekly huddle with everyone. I've also noticed that just in terms of etiquette on how to communicate, I've seen teams that for some reason hate turning cameras on. I have no idea why, but I think in this day and age, we've got to establish trust. And whilst it's maybe easier to just use chat, we want to use the videos wherever we can. We want to see the person's face wherever we can. I definitely benefit to that. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you've got clear, defined workflows that are visible. And what I mean visible is maybe it's a project or a job, like an actual file, a client file. Anyone can see it on the screen, and if something is, if it's sat there for 6 months, everybody would know. If it's all kept in someone's head or on one person's desktop, that's not helping. So we want it to be collaborative. We want it to be visible. So these are a selection of tools that you could look into, and it's very, very much personal preference. There's heaps more that I haven't put there. And then the reporting is the same. For an accounting firm, I would be thinking turnaround time, billings, and work in progress. Not every firm tracks work in progress, particularly not the smaller ones, but they're the things that and I would be saying you want them visible. So it's not personal, like not just keeping it to myself or only letting the staff see their billings. Everybody can see everybody's billings, because what we want to try and do is you want the sense of all of those billings work towards the common goal. And there's a kind of healthy team peer pressure. So nobody wants to let the team down, do they? That's what we want to. That's what we want to create. And by making it visible, that's how we get it moving towards that. I can see there's a question from Stephanie. I will circle back to that shortly, Stephanie. So thank you for putting that there. Here's an example. I'm always been a big fan of Trello, just sort of like a card system. One job or one project per card. I can see due dates. I can see when was the last piece of work, or when was the last time that card moved to the right-hand side of the screen on that workflow. Category there, and it's fantastic. I can tag someone and why has this job been stuck, or what's the latest here? Have you chased the missing information? Now so if those things are in place, what we can then work on is around the productivity. Now, everybody's home environment is a bit different. We all want to make sure that, you know, for our employees, that they've got a environment that's conducive to working well, and that is, I guess, you'll probably have to assess that employee by employee and have those chats, particularly if they're working 100% from home. But one thing that we should be pushing all staff to do, or one thing I think is good to push staff to do, is this concept of sprinting. So if you're new to this, a sprint is a 50 minutes to an hour of uninterrupted, focused, deep work. You know, it's getting into the zone, which is where you want to be for creativity, problem solving, productivity. It's not checking emails. It's not, you know, Facebook, you know, having Facebook open on the side, or, you know, it's not your low level stuff. It's what's my biggest, most important thing that I've got to get done today. I'm going to spend 50 minutes focused. I'm going to smash that. If we all sprinted 2 to 3 times per day, you know, all of our staff, you know, our businesses would get amazing results. So yeah, focused, and yeah, most important task is the key. For those in an unavoidable home situation with children responsibilities and so on, if you can do nothing else, but you just get those sprints done, you'll still be moving the business forward. Even if that has to be on an, you know, maybe you're doing it late at night, or, you know, whatever. It's critical. So there's a little bit of a culture shift to do this, because you have to, if you're going to implement that with your team, you have to allow the team to be offline, or to have some setting on, let's say, the internal chat system or whatever, that flags that they're in the zone and you don't want to interrupt them because they're, you know, they're smashing out something important. Okay. Next, and as we're coming to a close, best practices for remote team communication. So communication is really, you can have all that other stuff in check, but you know, and our experience with many clients over the years that have run remote teams through our office, if the team blows up, and when I say blows up, that's when you know, we get a number of staff in the one team saying they're ready to quit. It's usually because something's gone wrong with communication over a period of time. Now, before I talk about how that should happen, quickly on equipment, you know, just to give you an idea of what a good setup is. These are things we've tested. That first headset is great for you know, if you wanted a budget option to roll out through a large team or something like that. I'm using it right now, actually. We tested a whole bunch of these and found this one was a budget option with a really good noise cancelling microphone. So when the birds are really loud outside, or the dog's barking, or kids are, you know, banging on my door, that's the microphone, that's the headset I want. The Logitech webcam's the one I'm using. It's stock standard. It's not the cheapest, but it's very good. And if you want something more upmarket, those Sony headset, the noise cancelling headphones are great for the sprints. I mean, I literally have people walk up behind me. I don't even know they're there. It's just blocking out all the outside noise. And the Bose headset is similar, and also has again a really good noise cancelling option to it as well for the speaker. So I thought I'd just share that with you. It might be useful. Now, blowing up your team. This is a true story. So we had a manager from an accounting firm talking to the offshore staff, and just have a look at what this is not exactly word for word, but this is basically what happened. So, hey Gina, I've reset your access. This is the manager. I've reset your access to our tax software. Were you able to get in? No, it's giving me an error. Damn it. Okay, I'm busy. I'll chat to you about it later. Meanwhile, Gina, she's in tears, and we had actually had this happen. We had to calm Gina down and get in touch with the manager on the other side. Luckily, we were there involved. I mean, if you're just running a remote team inside your office, you know, you might only find out about something like this when you get the resignation. So this is very avoidable, isn't it? So that really comes about because it's text only. People aren't using their webcam. They're not, you know, the manager should have called Gina potentially, or should have. I think if there was a trust established, maybe Gina wouldn't have taken that damn it like that. That wasn't meant at her. It was just damn it at the situation. You know, similar things can happen if you're sending long emails and that just get misinterpreted. So these are some of the tools you'll want to consider using. All of them are good for communication. All of them have camera functionality, which you should use and use it often. Most of them allow easy screen recording and sharing. Now, in a separate training, I have put together 10 golden rules of communication as part of the resources that if you want to get access to, I will send that out to you just to walk through. It particularly relates to offshore teams, but it would be relevant to any remote work situation, I think, and a situation where you've got to train people remotely. You know, some of the key ones there: beware of just using email only. You know, that's a big no-no. Not that you don't send emails, but it's use what's appropriate for the situation, and get on the camera regularly and often. You still need to develop relationships, you know, in companies. You still need to encourage your staff to develop relationships. I've talked about recordings, you know, using the recording software. And you want to have some fun with your team as well. And I'll talk about it in a sec, but in a remote team situation, that doesn't naturally happen, you know. It needs to be a bit more intentional than in the office. Yeah, so I'll get you that if that's something you would like to look at later. Okay, so yeah, be proactive in relationship building. You could, you know, some things we've done is, you know, maybe an online Friday night drinks. Everybody, you know, go get your wine, bring it back. We're going to take, you know, finish half an hour earlier, an hour earlier. We're just going to have a chat, find out what everyone's doing on the weekend. Maybe a pizza party or a birthday celebration. You know, send a cake to the birthday person. They blow out the candles on, you know, on camera. It might feel silly, but we can't, you know, we need to do extra to build culture, don't we, if we're only working online. And there's plenty of games. My team over in the Philippines have taught me a lot about, you know, Kahoot and other, even just there's lots of them in YouTube, your Trivial Pursuit type games and things like that. Okay, so to summarize, that's our model. Train, so your systems, you've got training, you've got accountability. It's essential, and it's held together with good communication. I'm going to take some questions. I've got Stephanie's question here. This is a really good question. How can you accommodate daily check-ins when you're on different time zones? I've got 12-hour difference with my remote staff. Yes, it's difficult. We're still working through that. I've got like I said, I got my country manager in the UK. We've just had to pick. With that, we're selective on which huddles and meetings he needs to be on. Obviously, he can only be on. His time zone is morning, and ours is late afternoon. It depends, I guess, how, like if we were to open something in the US as well and have huddles that involve US staff, we would have to split them up. And so it really is just picking a time that works as best as possible. Someone might need to make a little bit of a sacrifice to make that happen, but yeah, I would say it's essential. And you're going to lean on more of that asymmetric asynchronous communication with your offshore, with your off time zone people. I've got so thanks for the question, Stephanie. Hopefully I've answered that. Gian, how do you get staff to adapt to using new communication tools such as Slack or Teams? I guess it depends on what, like, yeah, I'm not sure exactly where you're coming from with that. I didn't find it particularly hard to get them to use Slack. I guess that's going to be a leadership thing. Slack's a fantastic tool for just getting information out to either one person or a group of people through the channels without clogging up people's emails, and then them hitting respond and filling inboxes up. You can get all of that out of inbox and into Slack. So we're not a massive fan of emails. So I suppose it really comes back to email. Like I know Mark, my business partner, someone will type him some big long email with a big long problem they've got, and he just won't even read it. He'll just delete the email and call them and say, "You wrote this email. What? Just tell me what the problem is." So I think it's just it has to be led there. Hopefully I've answered that. I don't actually have any other questions, but for those who would like to get a little bit more, would you like a copy of our remote work info pack? If you would, please send me an email to that email address, john@frontlineaccounting.com. I'll get you the slides from today's webinar. I'll get you a book chapter from our book, which is Offshore or Die, How to Work with Offshore Teams. And I'll get you that 10 Golden Rules of Communication. So yeah, just send me an email and I'll get that out to you. There's no more questions, and I think we're almost done for the time. So I'd just like to say thanks for joining me. I hope that was useful to you, and all the best with your work and all that you're doing with remote work. Thanks a lot, guys.